What's going on, guys? This is John Zakari, and today I want to talk about the price of video games. Since their inception, video games have never been cheap. I remember back in the day, even though games were still usually around 50 or 60 bucks, getting a new one was a big deal. Remember, inflation, people, $60 in the 80s and 90s went a lot farther than it does today. So because of the high price point, we mostly rented games. If you were a kid at this time, you probably remember getting off school on a Friday and renting a game for the weekend. But now, since the prices haven't changed much and $60 isn't what it once was, games are actually much more affordable. And as time has progressed, games have gotten a lot more complex. I mean, just looking at a game from the NES era next to a AAA modern title today, there's no comparison. With these advancements, games have become a lot more expensive to make, even rivaling big-budget movies in some instances. While the games themselves haven't gone up in price, devs and publishers have found ways to get more money out of the consumer per game. Yep, we're talking about DLC, a way for game companies to sell you more content for a game post-launch or even at launch. DLC is something that sounds like a fine idea in theory, but oftentimes isn't used well in practice. The first major DLC debacle that I can remember off the top of my head was with Street Fighter X Tekken. While it's common for fighting games to add additional fighters after the game's launch, it was discovered that all the upcoming fighters to be released in the game were already on the physical disc and playable. So basically, customers were waiting to pay more money just to unlock content that was on the disc they already purchased. Plenty of similar issues have come and gone since then. I know recently the game Evolve had a lot of issues with basically selling you $60 for a DLC hub, as once you got into the game, much of the content was locked behind additional paywalls. Or let's get super recent, the announcement for the next entry in the Call of Duty series, Infinite War. This one makes me feel really old as they're tapping into Call of Duty nostalgia now, by also releasing an HD version of the original Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4. But as of right now, that game only comes bundled with the deluxe editions of Infinite War that start around 80 bucks. Clearly, Activision is banking on some people buying this solely for the Modern Warfare remaster, forcing players to buy a game they may not even want just to play the one that they do. So with all this nickel and diming, the question has been raised, should the price of video games just go up? This way, developers could focus more efforts on creating content rather than how they're gonna chop it up and sell it. Well, just like DLC, this is a fine idea in theory. Personally, I'd have no problem paying more for games if I knew I was getting more content out of them. Keyword being new. Just like it's hard to prove what content has been held back to get more profit out of a game nowadays, it'd be hard to prove whether or not you're actually getting a better game out of a higher price point. All in all, as it stands today, many publishers don't have the trust of the consumers, which is why I don't see the average price of games raising anytime soon. Especially since one company would have to try it first, and today I think the pushback would just be too great. And let's not make it sound like you can't sell a great game complete at $60. Just look at Nintendo, they're always my standard when it comes to game quality and releases. They have no problem making a solid game without any DLC, and hey, they're not a buggy mess on day one. Isn't that nice? You can actually play them the day they come out. Also, when they have done DLC, they've nailed it, the big games being Mario Kart 8 and Smash Bros. These games feel totally complete on their own with a bevy of content, but the additional courses and characters that have been released since have been high quality and sold at a fair price point. And that is how you do DLC. And don't let me be a Nintendo fanboy, look at Naughty Dog, a longtime major player for the Sony family. I love them more for the since forgotten Crash Bandicoot series, really pulling for that one to make a comeback. But more recently, they're known for Uncharted and The Last of Us. Also, in my opinion, a phenomenal set of games that delivered a complete, enjoyable experience at launch. And when they have done DLC like The Last of Us Left Behind, it feels like supplemental material added to the game rather than something that was taken out. And of course, this list goes on as you have companies like CD Projekt Red that gave away a ton of DLC for The Witcher 3 for free, and have since supplemented with some quality paid DLC. In closing, I do believe that the current $60 price point for a major game release is fair. Rather than charging consumers more money, game companies need to focus on delivering better experiences at that price point. I don't doubt that the price of games will have to go up sometime, but before that can happen, these companies will have to prove themselves to the consumer by winning back their trust first. And remember, as the consumer, you are not at the will of these companies. In fact, the opposite is true. You have all the power. These companies need your support to survive. Vote with your wallet, people. Support the companies you believe in. And with that, this video's a wrap. Let me know what you think of the cost of video games today in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to my channel now, and you can say you were a subscriber before it was cool. As always, I'm John Zakari, and thanks for watching.